on the album. I've had a listen to it tonight, and it is an absolutely fantastic album. So congratulations.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it. We never really know what people will make. Obviously we like it, but that's cool. If people are thinking it's good, then that's a bonus.
Did you go into this album with something that you wanted to achieve, with a goal in mind?
Probably the same goal we always have, which is going to sound extremely boring, and that is to make a better album, or the best album we can make, better than our previous album. I think my own goal was that we would get more time as a band to play the songs in a room together than we had on Vessels, the previous album, and that did happen, and it definitely helped to make everything feel more, again, bad pun, but more coherent, it gelled better. We had time to try things and talk about them more. So that was a goal I had, and I think it's been a useful the outcome has been a good one as a result.
Was that time because everything was stopped because of the pandemic? Did that actually give you guys more of a chance to get together and work on this album without having to go out and do shows and things like that?
Probably, because we actually went into the studio in March of 2020 to start tracking. And then, a few weeks later, after the drums were tracked, we went into lockdown with the pandemic. The jamming we did was sort of in the months leading up to that. So it was just lucky that we got the chance to do that in our band room before the pandemic hit, because once March 2020 started, we really lost any chance to spend much time together, and our recording was done in bits one or two people might be present. So it was probably, the summer of into 2020 where we spent quite a few months playing the songs together, which made a big difference.
That jamming in the band room, is that how your songwriting process works normally, or do you kind of go into the room with little bits and pieces of riffs and things like that first?
Yeah, I would say the jamming is definitely not what we would call our songwriting phase. It's like the polishing and improving phase, and becoming confident with the songs. We do the writing. It takes us years, and that's why our albums tend to be spaced out a bit, but we do it in a few ways. We probably George and I would be the bulk of the writing in terms of riffs and melodies and stuff, and then I bring it together often on a computer and do a lot of shuffling around, and then we would spend a couple of years at least as a band kind of meeting up once or twice a week to write the songs in a very deliberate way together and talk about what we like and don't like, and everyone's ideas would be heard. So we had done all of that, and then you get to the band room and you actually play them, and that's probably where I think the drumming benefits a lot, where Elliot has time to get very comfortable with the songs and a lot of ideas can come to him. And we made a few changes to little things, ways riffs connect, how many times you might repeat a riff, some of that stuff changed. Cool ways to elevate the song from a good song conceptually to a good song in terms of sounding like it works as a song, I think is what we used that time for in the band room.
Yeah. Did you feel that there was anything kind of influencing you during that songwriting process this time?
A few things always come along each album that, come into your thinking. I think, with me, I've been listening to a little bit of Animals as Leaders. I've been listening to a band called Forest of Stars from the UK. Always listen to older bands that we like Agalock and stuff, but probably each of our tastes evolve a little bit each album, and they will help us with some new ideas that will just alter the melodic death metal thing a little bit each album, which keeps us kind of engaged and excited by what we're making.
What about the things that were going around in the world at that time as well? Does that kind of thing influence you? Like what's going on in your personal life, what's going on with news and media and things like that?
I would say, funnily enough, it's almost the opposite, where no matter what's going on in each of our lives, probably the band is an escape. It's carved out as a place that maybe you don't have to worry about it as much there. So I would say we don't draw on our kind of daily experiences, whether it be work, family, health, the world, definitely not politics. We try not to bring that into the kind of work we do in the band, because it's a bit of escapism as well for us.
Yeah.
I think the only thing that probably has affected the lyrics would be some of the kind of, if George and I, who write the lyrics, if we've been reading certain things, whether it's history, bit of science, whatever it might be, that might become part of our thinking when we're telling a certain story in the lyrics. But apart from that, probably not the music as much.
Yeah. Are you an avid reader? I have to ask now that you've said that. Are you an avid reader that's always out there hunting for books to read next, or?
I would say that would be unfair to say I'm an avid reader to people who are avid readers. I probably don't read heaps, but I'm interested in, when I do find something, I'll go and read about it in a fairly deep way. And George is the same. I think, we both went to uni and talked and studied some philosophy back 15 years ago, and that's always been a part of our, I think, influence as well. So yeah, not huge readers these days, but partly because of how busy I'd say we are. But when you find something good that can be kind of engaging intellectually, it's worth looking into because it can have some kind of nice ways of influencing the next thing you do, right?
There are some beautiful and epic tracks on this album. Sweep of Days is just absolutely fantastic. I found myself listening to that over and over. Tell us a little bit about that beauty that came through with this album. Was that something that you guys were aware of even in those early days in the band room?
I think we always try to get that into our music, and then to varying degrees each song will get it, and it partly depends on the riffs in the song, partly depends on the production. So Vessels, we focused a lot on atmospheres. This album, we probably talked less about atmospheric stuff and talked more about melodies and memorable melodies and those sorts of things. We probably did want to have a bit more acoustic guitar present on this new album, and that might be contributing to that as well. But I'm happy to hear you mention Sweep of Days because it's a song that I am pretty excited about because we've never done a song like that is 5 minutes, like it's a proper song in terms of its length. It has all of us playing, except it doesn't have vocals, so it's a bit different for us. And I'd also quite like, going back to listen to that song because it is a bit different for us.
Did that feel daunting, doing an instrumental? Because I've heard bands say before that so often in the songwriting process that lyrics carry a song. Was it a little bit daunting for you guys to do an instrumental?
It was really interesting because it's kind of true where often you'll have for us, like a 7-8 minute song written, and then you'll come and you'll put vocals on top. And you're comfortable having left a few sections of the music knowing that vocals will sit with that section and help to elevate the section. Whereas with Sweep of Days, we knew we were going to write an instrumental, but we had never done it before like that. So when we were actually recording the song, I was thinking, okay, that section needs something now, and that section needs something. And because it couldn't be vocals, we ended up putting a couple of extra leads into that song because we knew that as an instrumental, it would need to carry its own weight throughout the entire song. So that's it was a really good, I really enjoyed that process, and it was a different thing for us to have to do.
How do you think it'll sound live? Because one of my first thoughts when I was listening to this album was that this album is going to sound amazing live. What are your thoughts on playing this album live?
I'm keen to hear what you reckon. What made you think that? Like, is it heaviness factor, or is it hummable melodies, or what do you think? What made you sort of feel it will sound good live? And then I'll answer the question.
Yeah, it's really funny because you just said that you guys didn't go for atmosphere with this album, but I found this album does have an absolutely amazing atmosphere, and I think that was the bit that actually made me think this will sound amazing live. This is the kind of album that I always imagine that you guys should play from start to finish live for a show.
Yeah, I mean, of course, when I say we didn't go for atmosphere, I think we always do a bit, but it wasn't the top thing on our list, whereas I feel for Vessels, we talked about it a lot, like it was one of the high considerations. But I think you're right. Like, I think they're about this is the other thing we learned from playing the songs as a band a lot before we recorded, is it felt good. It felt like these are fun to play live. And again, Vessels had some really challenging bits in it, and I think they were harder to play live, some of those songs. So this album, to me, I agree with you, it's probably going to help be an album we can play most of the tracks live, and I'd like to play a lot of them live, and I think it'll be fun. Like Hidden Window, the first single was heaps of fun to play, and it's going to be in our set list on our next tour, and I think it'll be great to see how they do sound live.
Now, talking of which, playing live, we're opening back up now. What are you planning now that everything's opening back up, and it looks like we might be able to get some shows together? Is that the plan for you guys now?
Definitely, yeah. We're working with Destroy All Lines currently to plan out our Aussie tour, and it was going to be like, when we first started talking with them, it was about a year ago, and we were like, we're going to do our tour in October 2021 because the album will be out by then. And then the pandemic sort of slowed things down a bit. So the tour is probably going to tip into 2022 just to be safe. We're going to look at 2022 for that. And then after that, we would be aiming to do a US tour and a European tour, which we're looking at sort of booking now with Napalm Events. But that'll be a little bit more work to go before we can actually be confident that the dates will be appropriate and not at huge risk of being cancelled and those sorts of things.
Yeah. Now, Steve, a lot of our listeners are very big music fans that love to collect music. Tell us a little bit about the special editions and limited editions that you've got available of this album that are coming out as well.
Yeah, look, it's the first time we've had what I would call a proper range of nice special edition. I think, actually, for A Breath and Bone, we had a really nice limited edition sort of 200 run digipack that we actually signed physically and numbered. But this album has got two pretty cool special editions. It's got a gold vinyl. I think Napalm was calling it the Die Hard vinyl that has it's got a metal plate with the lyrics sort of embossed into it in a slip mat, which I've never actually physically held one of these things, but apparently they're pretty cool. And I think there might be a small number left. I think the European store has sold out of them, but the US store might have a couple left. And there's also a wooden box limited edition sort of CD version that has a flag, a wristband, a really nice sort of coin, a Coherence coin inside the wooden box with the CD. And again, I think there's a small number of those left, maybe 20 or 30 of those left out of 500. But really cool to have some nice things that people can collect that add a bit of value and excitement to buying the album.
Definitely, and I know a lot of our listeners are going to go out and grab them. And I guess to finish off, what would you like to say to people out there before they go out and grab a copy of this album? Because I know a lot of them are going to want to.
I would hope, firstly, if they're a LAKOR fan already, I hope that they will hear enough in it that kind of sounds familiar and it's exciting to them, and then has some new things that they can sink their teeth into. And it probably, like all of our stuff, might take 5 listens through to start really getting into it. I think it's the sort of album I'd like to go to bed and put headphones on and just listen to, like you said, from start to finish. So hopefully people can have some time to do that. And if they are someone who's never come across LAKOR, I guess it's if you like classic Metallica leads and Opeth and a bit of Agalloch atmospheres, then you might like this album. So maybe give it a listen and see what you think.